Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast, the podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. Today's topic, this is a solo episode. I don't have a guest on. Today's topic is 30 tips to improve your podiatry career. Now, if you're at the Foot and Ankle show, you may recognize that title because that was the title of one of my presentations. My first presentation was Happiness and Achievement are Independent Variables. And the second one was 30 tips to improve your podiatry career. So I thought this one would be fantastic as a solo episode. And if you did hear my talk in Liverpool, if you listen to this, you'll probably work out, you said a few things that I didn't pick up in Liverpool. Two reasons for that. One would be I may not have said it in Liverpool because I could do this presentation 10 times. And I'll guarantee probably 10 to 20% of it will be different. And that's just what happens because when I did the talk in Liverpool at the Foot and Ankle show, that was early February. 4 weeks have passed since then. So I've been on webinars, I've spoken to different people, I've had coaching clients. And what happens is you're always evolving. So what was going on in my mind at the beginning of February to what's going on in my mind today when I'm doing the recording is completely different. And I think this isn't in my tips, but I think this is something that everyone needs to pay attention to. Is if you've read a book in the past, or you may have seen a speaker in the past and you thought, I didn't get a lot from it. Go back and listen to that speaker again, or watch that YouTube video again, or read that book again, because you're not the same person that you were back when you read it the first time. This happened to me when I read The E-Myth. Remember the first time I read the book and I went, this book is rubbish. And then it was so many years later, I was about to jump on an airplane and I went, you know what, I'm going to let the book gods decide which book I'm going to read. So I just reached out on the bookshelf, I closed my eyes and I pulled the book down and it was The E-Myth. And I went, oh, you are kidding me. But I went, yeah, I said, whatever book I pulled out, that was the one I was going to read. I read it on the plane going down to Sydney to a podiatry conference and it was absolutely fantastic. And I was laughing to myself about why did I think this book was so bad the first time I read it? And all it was I was a different person the first time I read the book to who I was when I read the book multiple years later. So there's a little tip there. Anyone who's listening to this podcast, if you've read my book, It's No Secret There's Money in Podiatry, and you gave it a 3 or less rating, go back and read it again. You'll probably find you're a different person. Okay, so let's get into the 30 tips to improve your podiatry career. Now, one thing I want to point out to you too, when we go through these 30 tips, I'm not expecting you to listen to the 30 tips and go, I'm going to apply all 30 of them. Pick a couple that really stand out, hone in on those and make them your priority to pay attention to. And I guarantee they will improve your career. So let's move on to tip number 1, which is never leave early. I think if you're attending any podiatry event, 1, make sure you're there on time. Arrive the day early so that you're well rested, get a good night's sleep, try and stay off the booze if you can, especially the first day of a conference. Arrive early, be there on time. But when an event finishes, don't be the first person to bolt out the room. I always feel you should stay an extra day or stay an extra night. It's amazing the people who hang around at the end, some of the fantastic conversations you can actually have. And then the next day, get up at a reasonable time, go through your notes, the information that you've taken in, set a bit of a game plan, and then make your way home. Don't be in a rush to get home. Tell you right now, in years to come, you will not remember why you rushed back that particular day, but you will remember the people you stayed with and talked to at the end of a conference. And that's exactly what happened with me at the Foot and Ankle show. When it finished, there was a number of us, Tony Gavin and his team, that hung around at the end, and we had a fantastic time having a couple of drinks, but just some really good conversations. And I think my friendship with a lot of people, I connected with them even more on that last night. Tip number 2, accept AI. It's just one of those things you're going to have to accept. AI at the moment is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So you need to dive in and just accept it's there and introduce it into your clinic, introduce it into your life and use it wherever you can. Now you can keep pushing it away and saying, no, I don't need any of that. I'm not interested. But eventually you will just have to take it on. So the earlier you can adopt it into your business, the more success you will actually get from AI. If you wait too long, you could get left behind while everybody else is actually moving forward. Number 3, don't be the smartest person in the room. You will learn nothing if you're in a room where you actually think you're the smartest person. Try and get in a room where there's always someone there that you know that you can learn from. Really good friend of mine, Dave Fries, probably the smartest person I actually know. I've got some very, very smart friends. But Dave in particular, I remember him saying once that it doesn't matter where you go or who you meet, that person can always teach you something. So be open to the idea that every interaction you have, you can actually learn something from it. Tip number 4, read every day. Not just some days, read every day. Even if you only put 10 or 15 minutes aside, read every day and make sure it's something that is going to make you feel better. It might be a business book. It could be. It's no secret there's money in podiatry. But I don't think you should just constantly be reading business books. I think you should be reading books about other successful people, what they did and the things that they overcame to be where they are today. You can get a lot of inspiration from that and motivation. Read books that are based on mindset that are just going to get you thinking a little bit better, get your head in the game. If you can't find 10 or 15 minutes a day, you are kidding yourself. You really are. Yeah. Everybody can find 10 or 15 minutes. If you say you're too busy to find 10 or 15 minutes, you're lying to yourself. Just accept you're lying to yourself. Go to your diary, block out 10 or 15 minutes and read something. Like I love reading marketing books. I love reading business books, but I also love reading books about other people's success. And I do love reading books that actually challenge my thinking, but actually make me feel better after I've read them. Tip number 5 is stop hiding what you do on social media. And regardless of the platform, make it really clear that you do podiatry. I've seen some people's Facebook pages where I've gone through it and I tell you, I wouldn't know they were podiatrists because I have a Facebook group called the Podiatry Business Owners Club. If you're not already a member of the Podiatry Business Owners Club, come over. All you do is answer 3 simple questions and I'll let you in. But sometimes I've had people will fill in a few things, put an email address, and I can't. I look at them and go, okay, I'm just going to check their profile to find if they are actually a podiatrist. And I tell you, sometimes it is really difficult to work out if the person is actually a podiatrist or not. Sometimes I've had to look at who their friends are. Do we have mutual friends? And I've hunted down through there and I found out, oh, they are a podiatrist. But I go through all their social media and it's almost like they're embarrassed to tell people they're a podiatrist. And I know some people said, oh, like I don't want to post things about my podiatry business because I don't want to annoy my friends. I'm thinking if they're friends, they won't get annoyed. And that same person that has actually said they don't want to annoy their friends, I've seen them post multiple things about their friend's dress shop or a shoe store down the road that they do not own. Or it might be a restaurant that one of their friends own and they talk about that all the time, and their friends post things and tag them in it. Something, if you can do that for everybody else's business, do it for your own business. Be proud of what you do and put it on your social media pages. And if it pisses off your friends, they're not friends. I do this with the podcast. I'm always posting stuff about the podcast on my personal page. And I know all my friends see it. And they often ask me, how's the podcast going? Your friends will do exactly the same thing. And don't assume they're always going to remember that you're a podiatrist if you don't tell them. Because your friend will be at work and a friend of theirs or a colleague will say, oh, I've got this foot problem. And if you're not top of mind because they're seeing your stuff on a regular basis, they're not even going to think about it. So you're losing business and you're losing patients by not letting your friends and family know constantly that you actually love doing what you do. Now, if you don't like doing what you're doing, then don't share it. Keep it to yourself. Tip number 6 is what I call inversion thinking. And pretty much it's the easiest way to describe it. To solve a problem, you may find the solution faster if you think about how not to solve the problem. And it's one of those things, if you're trying to figure out how you should do something, look at how an unsuccessful person would approach that. And then don't do what they would do. Think about if you wanted to do something, oh, if I really wanted to bugger this up, what would I do to make this not work? and then do the exact opposite. So inversion thinking is thinking about how not to solve the problem and then doing the exact opposite. It's a great way of actually finding a solution sometimes to something that might be going through your mind. You might be thinking, should I do this in my clinic? Should I introduce this particular service? Think about all the reasons not to have that service in there, and then you'll probably find all the reasons to have the service there. Number 7 is find your difference. We all have something that I think makes us unique, and you need to bring that into the forefront of your business, whether it's on your website, whether it's part of your clinic. And I think you're going to be a lot happier. And if you don't own your own business at the moment, still you need to bring these skills to the forefront. For example, I was going to be an art teacher. And because of that, I have a creative background, which is probably why I play the guitar. I've written a couple of books. I do different drawings. I have a very creative sort of mind. I think everybody has something that makes them unique. It could be a sporting background. It could be an interest or a hobby that sets you apart from everybody else. If you're a chess champion, how can you use that in your particular business? If you played sport at a fairly high level, how are you going to introduce that in your business? I remember having a person work for me, and if he's listening to this podcast, he'll remember this conversation. I was at his house. We're going through this box, and I found this trophy. And I grabbed the trophy, and on top of the trophy was a golf ball. And I went, "What's that from?" He goes, and I think it might have been at Royal Melbourne Golf Club. He said, "Oh, that's when I got a hole-in-one on the 7th hole." I'm not sure if that was the hole or not. And I said, "So you got a hole-in-one at golf?" And he went, "Yeah." And they took that ball and they put it on a trophy and they presented it to me. And I went, "And you have that trophy hiding in a box?" And he went, "Oh yeah, I really, because I don't want to show off." And I'm thinking, if I got a hole in one on a golf course and they gave me a trophy, I'd be wearing the thing as a hat. I said, that's how much I'd want people to know about it. I said, that trophy should be sitting in your consultation room, whether it's on the desk or up on a shelf. And I'll guarantee 50% of the patients that walk in will want to ask you about that particular trophy. And every single patient who is a golfer, I'll guarantee you right now, will definitely ask about that trophy. They will, and the conversation will hang about what does it feel like? Oh, I've come this close. The bond that you would actually connect with some of your patients over that particular trophy, because everybody who's ever played golf, who's ever picked up a golf club, knows how hard that is to do. These are the type of things, I think, when you've some amazing achievement or you've got some particular skill, don't hide it. Just bring it to the forefront. Make your patients aware of it. Number 8, be a podcast guest. And I think the best thing about being on a podcast is it actually builds social proof up about who you are. So if you have a podiatry business or whether you don't, if you get the opportunity to be on a podcast, if somebody like myself says to you, "Hey, would you like to come on the Podiatry Legends podcast?" just say yes. Everybody has a story. The good part is, especially if you have a business, if anyone's searching you or your business, that podcast will pop up somewhere. And when they see that, that is social proof to your patients that you must be someone of importance to have been on a podcast. And if you're saying, "Oh, I'm really not sure if I'd want to be on the podcast myself," then when I'm doing a call out for guest episodes, so every now and then, I think I've done about 16 group episodes over the last 5 or 6 years. When I do a call out for that, put your hand up and go, "Yeah, I'd love to come on." Therefore, I only talk to you for 5 or 10 minutes. I'll put them all together, and they are usually very popular episodes. Number 9, walk and record your thoughts. Your mind opens when it's relaxed. It's like if you've ever been in the shower and you're all lathered up, water's falling on you and you're very relaxed. Sometimes you'll have some of the best ideas. Or when you wake up first thing in the morning, you'll open your eyes, and just as you're opening your eyes, you'll have some amazing thoughts. And that's why they reckon you should be writing these down. I think it's exactly the same as if you're going for a walk. If you do it a couple of times a week, whether you're doing it for exercise or just walking the dog, is make sure you probably got your phone with you anyway, is just record your thoughts. Anything that pops into your head, just record it. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be an audio recording. You might just type it into your phone, or you might go to the notes section and record your voice and it'll type it for you. But just record your thoughts. You can always delete them. I've looked through some of the things that I've written down on my phone over the years, and I'm going, I don't know what I was on at the time when I said that, but it makes no sense. I will leave it there because sometimes 1 or 2 years later, I'll look back at that and go, that actually makes sense now. So it's just funny. Start recording your thoughts. You'll be surprised where you'll actually use them. So number 10, become your biggest fan. And you must become fan number one of your business, of your career, and who you are. So basically, you've got to be a fan of your business before anybody else will. And Jesse Cole, he is the owner of the Savannah Bananas, a semi-professional baseball team in America. They've been on ESPN. They've been featured there. He has created such a phenomenal business from that baseball team. He wrote a book called Fans First, and that's what he was talking about. You've got to become your number one fan. He was on episode 118 of the Podiatry Legends podcast. Go and have a listen to that. We're talking about standing out. It is a fantastic episode, and I guarantee you will take something from it. Tip number 11 is help patients avoid decision fatigue. And so therefore, give them less treatment options. You might be surprised, but throughout the day, we have hundreds of decisions that we have to make. And a lot of times we're totally unaware that we're even making those decisions. So you wake up in the morning, what shirt are you going to wear? I've got multiple sets of glasses. What glasses am I going to put on? What footwear are you going to wear? So just getting dressed, what you're going to have for breakfast, what time you're going to leave, when you drive to work, which way you're going to go. Because usually there's 1 or 2 ways that you can actually drive to work. All these decisions are going through your head all day, every day. So, and realize that at the end of the day, you can have decision fatigue, that you get really tired and you don't want to be making any more decisions. Realize your patients are going through exactly the same thing. So if they're coming to you at the end of the day and you're presenting to them a really elaborate treatment plan that's got, here's 5 different options on what you can do, I always say a confused mind says no. So if you're presenting 5 options and they're like, oh, I have to think about it, I've got to talk to my wife, my accountant, the cat, you probably find it's just they don't want to make a decision. So sometimes give them less options to choose from. I used to only give my patients 1 option. This is what I think is the best for you. Or don't even give them the options. Just say, this is what I think you should do next. And a lot of times patients want you to guide them. They want you to help them make the right decision. And I always think, you would never give a treatment plan to someone that doesn't deserve it. So if you 100% feel that that is the best treatment for them, then that's what you should present. And you should also tell them, I think this is the best treatment for you. Okay, tip number 12 is be aware of self-fulfilling prophecies. And I used to say years ago, let's go back many, many years ago, decades, we used to say April is our quietest month. So I used to say to my team, hey, if anyone wants to take holidays, April is the best time to do it because it is the quietest month. It's always quiet in April. Don't know why, it just is. Then I had a hairdresser come into the clinic one day. She's a very successful hairdresser. And she said to me, however busy you are in one particular month is a reflection of what you did the month before. And I went, oh. So I started to wonder, was April quiet because I wasn't doing as much in March? And therefore, was I making April quiet being totally unaware of it? So this was, I can't remember what time of the year it was, but I just thought, you know what, no matter what I do each month, I'm just going to keep doing it each and every month. I'm not going to make any changes. So I thought heading into April and through April, it's going to keep doing the same thing. All of a sudden, that next April was one of the busiest months we ever had because I didn't make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. The only problem was I told my team, if you want to take holidays, you can take it in April. And some of them did. And my God, was it busy. So just be aware of that. If you have a quiet month or something is happening in your business, just realize, is that really what's happening? Or are you doing things subconsciously and making that actually come to realization? Just be aware of it. Number 13, your number one asset is you. So look after yourself. take time off, recharge the battery. What I've started doing this particular year, and this is one of the books I recommend people read, it's called The 12-Week Year. And the 12-week year is all based on, instead of looking at your whole year, setting goals and going, this is what I'm going to achieve, what they realize is most people don't do too much until about the last 12 weeks of the year. And they go, oh, I said I was going to do this. So they start doing it. So the idea of the 12-week plan or the 12-week year is to break a year into 4 12-week segments. And on the 13th week, you can actually have a rest week. So you set goals and you push yourself for 12 weeks. And on that 13th week, you actually, it's a week all about you. You can either take the time off or you can just relax and not be pushing as hard. So for myself now, I will work for 12 weeks and then I have a week off, which is Tyson's week. And I'll do whatever I want in that week. I won't be doing coaching calls. I won't be recording any podcasts. Everything will be pre-programmed in so I can actually have that week off and just relax. My next one that's coming up, I'm going to Mission Beach for a few days, which is a beautiful place. And that will be at the beginning of April because that will be on my 13th week. But just remember, you need to look after yourself. If you don't look after you, nobody else is going to. And I know some people go, oh, but I'm so busy. If you do not look after yourself, it is going to affect your health. And you talk to anyone that has been in business for a long period of time, and they look back and they will say that if you work too hard, if you burn the candle at both ends, it does affect your health. So please look after yourself. Number 14, use your team more. Stop trying to do everything yourself. And I know as business owners, when we first start, I think one of the things that happens is because usually when you start your business, it's just you. And you just do everything yourself. And because you do everything yourself, even when you bring on team members, it's sometimes hard to let go of things that you know that you do well. Are you hanging on to tasks that you should be getting your team to do? Don't try and do everything yourself. One, it'll free up your time, but your team will also become happier because their job will become more interesting if you give them other tasks to do. Number 15 is find their superpower. And this is every person that works in your team will have a superpower. And it's really up to you to find it. Because if you don't, they will leave. And to give you an example, you might have a particular person that works for you who's fantastic on the telephone at maybe rebooking appointments or reactivating patients or following up recall letters. Or they might be great at just handling complaints. They might be better with billing. They might be good at writing blog articles or fantastic on social media. Everybody has a superpower. So if I was working at a podiatry clinic myself, my superpower would be my creativity. They need to tap into that. They want me to sit down, help them work out marketing plans or just better ways of writing things. I also love writing, as you probably know. Tap into that. And I always say there's 2 types of superheroes. The first one are the frustrated superheroes who have to hide their superpowers. Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, all frustrated buggers. And the reason they're frustrated is because they couldn't tell anyone who they were. That they had to wait until they put their costume on before they went out there and saved the world. But then you have a look at the happier superheroes, Iron Man, Captain America. Everybody knew who they were. Even if you think like Wonder Woman, God, she used to get frustrated all the time when she had to wait until she twirled around before she turned into Wonder Woman. She couldn't just be Wonder Woman. So just think, you've got people in your business who've got superpowers. Let them use those superpowers and they're going to be much happier. Number 16, novelty attracts attention. It's basically in our DNA. And we just notice things. And the reason it's in our DNA, if you go back to good old caveman times, we're all sitting around in the cave chatting with each other. And if somebody went for a walk and they noticed a brown lump up on top of the hill, they might go, ooh, it could be a bear. So they come back and they say, hey, I noticed something up on the hill up there. So when you come out, you might want to go to the right, don't go to the left. Now, John, who was sitting out the back, who was not paying attention, he walks out, he goes left, he gets eaten by the bear. His DNA and that whole line of his family is now ended. And all the people who listened, who went right, remember that, hey, things that stand, you got to pay attention to things that stand out. So you can do the same thing in your clinic. I'm not saying put a bear inside your clinic, which would stand out. But Move things around, change things, put different pictures up on the wall, paint, use color. In my clinic, we didn't have like normal consultation rooms. Each consultation room had the emblem of a superhero on the door. So we had the Superman room, Spider-Man room, Captain America. We had a bit of fun with it. And patients noticed that and they actually talked about it, especially kids. They thought it was absolutely fantastic. So number 17, put your favorite services center stage. Yeah. What do you like to do most? Or which are the services that you want to do more of? Don't hide them on different pages on your website. You've got to dig through and find it. If you want to do more orthotic patients, if you want more running patients, if you want to see more children, bang, that should be the first thing that people notice when they come to your website. It shouldn't be hidden. So whatever it is that you want to do more of, whatever service that you enjoy, whatever makes more money, whatever makes you happy, is make sure that those services are front and center. You might have three. So on my old website, we had three things that really stood out. It says, you're here because you have heel pain, because we treated heel pain. You're here because you want orthotics, because that's what we did a lot of. You're here because you have fungal nails. They were our three biggest money earners. So when you came to our website, they were the three things that really stood out. So you need to do the same. 18, understand your real competitors. You're not in competition with other podiatrists. They're your colleagues. And we should all be working together. We should not be looking at each other that we are competitors. But who you really are, who your competition is, and I think a lot of people are not aware of this, your competition is the family holiday. When you're saying to a patient, hey, you need to get this done, or your children, your three kids need this, and the person's looking at that treatment plan or how much it's going to cost, they're weighing that up against the family holiday or the car that's just about to be serviced or the car that's broken down and needs to get fixed or the school fees are about to come up. These are your real competitors. So be aware of that. It's not the podiatrist down the road. It's life. It's stuff that happens with your patients, things that financially can put a burden on them, but also, like I said, just the family holiday, them looking forward to that. Oh, do we get little Johnny the orthotics or do we spend an extra night at our accommodation? So be aware. 19, if you're not happy, make changes. And this could be a team member. If you got someone working with you who is a right real pain in the bum, you don't enjoy them being there, the rest of your team doesn't particularly like them, they're just not a pleasant person, then get rid of them. Give them their notice and just let them go. Do not keep someone just because you feel like you have to have them there. If you have patients that you don't like, you have patients that are rude, you have patients that complain about your fees, there's no rule that says we must treat every patient. If you make these changes, you will become happier in all these little areas. And I tell you now, when you're going into work every single day, and if you're an employee and you're listening to this, and there's certain things that's happening in your workplace that you're not happy with, talk to your employer about it. Just say, look, can I be open and honest with you? I'm not happy when, and explain it. Now, make sure it's reasonable. If you just say, I'm not happy because I want an extra $50,000, no, that doesn't apply. You're going to still be unhappy. But if there's certain patients you don't like treating, let them know you don't like it. Like everyone who's listening to this podcast, I don't even need to tell you, I don't like ulcers. So if I had to work somewhere and they said, Tyson, I need to see that ulcer, I just wouldn't be a happy podiatrist. So if you're not happy, make the changes. 20, live life with intent. I always say you can read or you can read with intent. What I mentioned before, if you're going to read 15 minutes a day, 10 or 15 minutes, you can just pick the book up and just read through it, or you can sit there and go, okay, I'm going to read this book with the intent of actually reading something or learning something from this. I'm going to read it and going to apply it. I think it's one of those things that life in general, you should just approach with intent. The last few holidays that I've had in the US, especially after COVID. So before COVID, I'd go overseas and I'd just go and I enjoy myself and I'd go to the conference. And yes, and I'd learn, I'd take my notes and I'd stay the day after and I'd work out my game plan. But when COVID was on, I couldn't travel for a couple of years. It really, really affected me. So after that, every holiday I have now, I travel with intent. I pay attention more about what's going on around me. I know this might sound weird to some people, but I really just take it all in. I take so many more photos because I can just look through them and it just reminds me of that trip. Did the same thing when I was in the UK with Jonathan Small. We're touring around a few different places and I really did. I just took in everything. And at the end of the day, I wrote down some notes about what I learned that day. So whether you're traveling or not, just approach each day with intent. If at the end of the day, you could learn one thing every single day and you could write that down somewhere, imagine what you could learn at the end of a year, 365 things that you've learned or paid attention to. I just think it's an absolute game changer. 21, learn a new skill every quarter. And you might want to get better at videos. You might get better at lighting or using audio, or you want to learn how to do a podcast. There's so many, they don't have to be big things either. Just pick something. It could be a particular area of biomechanics. Pick something that you know that if I just put a bit of effort in over the next 3 months, I'll be better at it at the end of 3 months than I was before I started. If you can do that same thing throughout the year and you can learn or improve 4 skills each year, tell you who you'll be in the next 5 or 10 years is amazing. Like I've said to a few people recently, if you want a good laugh, go onto my YouTube channel, Tyson E. Franklin, and scroll back to some of my older videos and you will see how bad some of them are. The lighting is atrocious. I've got this boom sticking in front of me where the microphone was, everything about them. The audio was okay, but the lighting wasn't too good. And I look at them now and I just shake my head. But they always say 80% and out the door is better than 100% and in the drawer. So you need to get started. If you want to improve, you need to get started. That's the important thing. But think about some things you would like to learn this year, note them down and go, okay, this quarter, I'm going to focus on that and just get better at it. Number 22 is 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And this is all about preparing for the worst and expect the best. So this is a military term that was used in the Marines. And what they're saying by 2 is 1, 1 is none, they will always have 2 ways of doing something. They don't rely on just one. So even with their weapons, they might have a rifle, they might have a sidearm, and they've probably got one on their ankle as well. Because if the gun fails, they've got other weapons they can go with. They'll then have a knife. So there's always these backup plans. If you only had one weapon and it failed, you've got nothing. When they need to light fire, they might have a lighter, matches, and flint. So if something fails, they've got a backup plan. You need to do the same thing in your business, is plan that if you're relying on you've got one other podiatrist in your clinic and they are working absolutely crazy and you are so reliant on that person, if they leave, what are you going to do? And you start thinking about this. If you have a practice manager who, if you think, if she ever left, oh, it'd be buggered. Well, what happens if she had an accident and couldn't work? Do you have things in place and are you prepared for this? If you have a piece of equipment that you might scan to get orthotics made, and this might be a little bit more realistic, if that breaks and stops working tomorrow, what is your backup plan? So look at all the aspects of your clinic and just realize, do you prepare for the worst, but always expect the best to happen? Okay, number 23, is 1 pair enough? And this came from Dave Freeze again, the friend I was talking about before. He said he went to a service station one day, and at the service station, they had the big the ice thing out the front. And he went to get some ice, and there was a sign up there, and it said, is 1 bag enough? So he gets 2 bags. Then he went inside and said to the servo guy, out of curiosity, by putting that sign there, did it make any difference at all to your ice sales? He said, oh yeah, ice sales went up 60%. Just by having that sign, is 1 bag enough? When you're offering orthotics to a patient, realistically, is 1 pair enough? If you've got 3 or 4 different shoes, work boots, running shoes, football boots, other types of footwear, really, is 1 pair enough? So you could actually ask them that question, is 1 pair enough? And they might go, oh, okay, well, actually, how much would it be to get a second pair? Now, a bit of a spin on this too is when you have a patient ring up to make an appointment, if you said the same thing to them, oh, while I have you on the phone, is there anybody else in your family that needs an appointment? Just by asking that question will make them stop and think. And I know myself, going back years ago, when I was complaining about my shoulder, if the physiotherapist that my wife was seeing had have asked her that question, more than likely she would have booked me in and gone, well, actually, Tyson's been complaining about his shoulder again. I'll get him to come in and see you. But they never asked that question. And this is why McDonald's used to ask, would you like fries of that? Because they knew probably about 10% of the people said yes. And that added billions of dollars to the bottom line. So just remember, well, I've got you on the phone. Is there anybody else that needs an appointment? Or is one pair enough? Number 24, same effort, therefore go big. And do you realize it probably takes the same effort to explain an over-the-counter device as it does to explain a custom-made device? So if you're explaining an over-the-counter device or support because you think, oh, that's all the patient can afford, do you know you're putting in the same time and effort if you were explaining a custom-made device? And if you think the custom-made device will be better, then explain the custom-made device. Now, I know there's a lot of podiatrists who only use pre-mades. That's fine. As long as you're using the pre-made for the right reasons and you think it's the best thing for the particular problem, there's not a problem with that. But if you're only choosing the pre-made because you're concerned about what the patient can afford and a custom-made may be better, then it's the same effort. Just go big and explain the custom-made device. Okay, number 25, create a Facebook group. And everybody knows at the moment, the Facebook pages, the engagement is quite low. So therefore, you could start a group that's part of your actual podiatry business. It could be a walking group, could be a running group. You might create a stretching group and you let your patients know that this group exists and you put some time, effort, and you put a bit of expertise into that group and you'll find people will join that group. Have a look at yourself. What groups are you part of? Which, not just pages, but what groups are? Like I mentioned before, the Podiatry Business Owners Club is a group. There's over 1,200 podiatrists in that group because I promote it and I talk about it. You can do exactly the same thing with your groups, but it mightn't be just walking, running, or stretching. There was a jewelry store in Brisbane. I can't remember the name. The friend was telling me about this. And the jewelry store had a whiskey group set up that was attached to his jewelry store. And once every quarter, he would invite certain clients into his jewelry store to try some high-end whiskeys. Why couldn't you do the same thing with your podiatry businesses? Have a whiskey appreciation group, and you could invite certain patients. You know, right now, there's some bottles of whiskey. Like I've got some bottles of whiskey here at home that I bought relatively cheap at the time that are now worth $3,000 or $4,000 a bottle. Yeah, that is just absolutely crazy. I did not pay $3,000 or $4,000 a bottle. I got them years and years ago, just hadn't opened them. And then all of a sudden they just went up in value. I tell you right now, if I had patients and I said to them, hey, I'm about to crack open a Habiki 30-year-old whiskey, anyone that is aware of whiskey would know how expensive that bottle of whiskey is. They would turn up at my clinic, they would all have a taste, and they would all very much appreciate it. So just think about, yes, you can set up these sensible groups for walking, running, stretching, health benefits, all that type of thing. But you can also set up groups that have got really nothing to do with podiatry, but it might be something that your patients are actually interested in. 26, C players don't like KPIs. And so don't get sucked into their game. And this applies to employees and employers because KPIs are key performance indicator. It's not something you measure so you can punish people. It's something you measure so you know if the job is actually getting done properly. I know if I work somewhere and they didn't have KPIs, I would not work there because I want to know when I'm doing my job, I want to know if I'm performing at a standard or above what they're expecting from everybody in their team. And most of the times, the people that complain about KPIs don't understand KPIs, or they've worked for people, they've worked for an employer or a boss who doesn't understand what a KPI actually is. They're using it to punish people, and it shouldn't be for that. It should be there to encourage people to improve. And it's also, if you're measuring KPIs the right way, and you have a team member that has something going on in their life and they're a little bit flat or a little bit down, key performance indicators will let you know that this is actually happening. And you can approach them and say, hey, is there something going on at home that I'm unaware of? That's what KPIs, that's the power of KPIs if you use them properly. Number 27, work on your mindset every single day. Mindset eats strategy all day long. And perfect example, if you're in a really positive mindset, you're in a really good mood, life is great, and you're looking at different marketing opportunities, you're going to look at completely different to if you're feeling defeated, you're a bit depressed, you're a bit down on yourself. That's when you make bad decisions. So you should be making an effort to constantly be working on your mindset. Try and keep yourself in a positive manner. And the best way of doing it is reading books, listening to positive podcasts, like the Podiatry Legends podcast, but hang around people that also have a positive outlook on life. Have a look at your circle of friends. If you're hanging around people that every time you're with them, you feel worse for the experience, then you've got to stop hanging around it. And this includes family. If you've got family members that are just depressing, just stay away from them as much as you can. I know when it's Christmas and birthday, sometimes you have to see them. But if you don't have to be around them all the time, then pull back a little bit. Try and find a circle of friends that make you feel good. I have a fantastic circle of podiatry friends that I can call upon at any time. And every time I'm with them, I just feel so much better for the experience. That's what you want to do as well. Okay, number 28, simplify everything. They have a saying, complex fails, simple scales. And Porsche had a really good saying as well. That was, for speed, add lightness. So it's like taking stuff away. Look at your instruction manuals. Look at your training manuals. Look at everything you're basically doing and go, can it be simplified? Does it have to be as complicated as what it is? If you've got 10 steps to do something, do you really need 10? Can it be broken down to 5? So just think, are you overcomplicating things? And I always say, when you're explaining something to someone, if it's on more than one page, then it might be a little bit too complicated. So just think about that. Okay, number 29, increase your fees. You've probably heard this a million times before. And I always say, a patient's affordability is not your responsibility. I've had so many people say, oh, I can't, my patients won't pay that because, and I always say in brackets, add a bullshit excuse. Oh, my patients won't pay that because my clinic's in a low socioeconomic area. Where my clinic was in Cairns was probably one of the worst suburbs in Cairns. So if I said, my clinic's in a low socioeconomic area, it was. Yeah, it was an extremely successful podiatry clinic. And at the time, before I sold it, we were charging more than anybody else in Cairns. Now, the biggest podiatry clinic in Cairns is set up across the road from my old clinic, and I'm sure they do not bulk bill or do anything else. They have an amazing clinic, and it is, once again, in a low socioeconomic area. So don't con yourself or tell yourself lies that you can't increase your fees, or you're going to keep your fees really low because your patients won't like it. You should be charging what you're worth. And if you want to provide a great service to all your patients, you want to be able to buy the latest equipment, invest back into your business, take some really good holidays yourself and look after your family, then you've got to be charging what you're worth. You don't want to be discounting everybody and all of a sudden go, oh, sorry, kids, we can't go on that holiday this year because I'm driving an old beat out car because I don't have any money. And I've heard podiatrists say that, and I just think it's crazy. Charge what you're worth. And if a patient is going to leave you and go somewhere else over $5, then you don't want them in your business. So just think about that. Tip number 30 is what I call flip it. And what that is, you've got to tell yourself, and you remind yourself, that you are a walking, talking good deal. You are a fantastic good deal. Now, you might be looking at, how much are you charging a patient for a particular service? Or how much does a patient need to pay? Don't think about what they have to pay. Think about, the changes and benefits you're making to their life. So for $100 or $500, or even if they had to spend $1,000 in your clinic, what are you doing for them? They're able to run around with their kids more. They're able to exercise. They're going to lose weight. Their overall health is going to be better. You may have added an extra 10 years to their life. So you are a walking, talking, fantastic bloody deal. And just remember that. Don't think about what they're spending. Think about the benefits you're adding. And it's no different to when I have my coaching clients. I don't look at what they pay me each month. I look at the value I'm actually adding to their business. So if one of my coaching clients that might be paying me 10, 15 or 20 grand a year, but they're making an extra $400,000 or $500,000 a year, do you think they got a good deal? And then they keep making $400,000 or $500,000 more every single year. Do you think that's a good deal? Or even if they're not making an extra $400,000, if I've helped them look at different things and they're now saving money, not spending as much, and their profit margin is bigger, they're paying me 20, but they've got an extra 100 grand in the bank account. Is that a good deal? It's a friggin' fantastic deal. So just remember, you're a walking, talking good deal. And that's how I look at coaching, is I'm a walking, talking good deal. I know when people work with me and they listen, they actually make money. So now I'm going to take you on to tip 31. Now I know that this was 30 tips to improve your podiatry career. This is tip number 31. Always give more than expected. Wow your patients unexpectedly wherever you can and give them more than they thought. Keep adding value to the consultation. Don't discount, just give them more. Charge more and give them more. Make them feel like the consultation, the value you're giving them each time is well worth the visit. But anytime you can wow them, wow them. If you have said to a patient, that'll be ready for you in 3 days, try and get it done in 2. Just any time you can, make them go, wow, that was absolutely fantastic. So always try and give your patients more. So that pretty well covers my 30 or 31 tips to improve your podiatry career. Hope some of those tips resonated with you. Like I said, think about the 30 tips. If you've been taking notes, look at the notes you've taken down and go, okay, which are the top 3 that I'm actually going to work on? Increasing your fees might be one. Flip it might be another thing, that you are a walking, talking good deal. Just go through that list and think about, what are the 3 things I'm going to work on? Work on those first. And when you've worked on them, come back and start looking at more of those things on that list. And if you can work through that list this whole year, I think it'll make a huge change to how you look at business, how you actually look at your career. If you have any questions after all this, please feel free to send me an email, tf@tysonfranklin.com, or you can send it to tyson@podiatrylegends.com. Okay, before I finish up, just to remind you to go to my website, tysonfranklin.com. On there, click on events. Throughout the year, I'm always going to be updating and adding things to the events area. And like I said, send me an email if you have any questions. Also, pretty much that's it for me this week. I want you to look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you next week. Bye for now.